Welcome back to another episode of Chaddy Issues. I'm your host, Lib Kelly, and this is my ever reliable, ever consistent co host, Sambo. This is the podcast where we talk about real life pain, growth, relationships, and everything usually behind closed doors. Today's guest is someone with a powerful story. She's an Australian lawyer. Born in Lebanon, and we connected because I put a very clear and specific message out that I didn't want this podcast to be a male-dominated podcast. And Lara, thanks for being our first guest since that message, and I'm generally excited to hear about your story. And how you going today, Lara?
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure is mine. Yeah, I'm feeling okay. Busy Sunday. Uh, yeah, I reached out to you that day when I saw your video on my FYP. It came up when you were reaching out to uh, female. I don't know if you'd say TikTokers. I'm not a TikToker by any means. The first day I started making videos on TikTok, I did get a few hate messages. Not hate messages, so to say, but I did get a few hate comments. So I stopped posting, to be honest with you. I started making content, which was just I was intending to just make informational videos on TikTok. Um, so I sort of got turned off um, social media. And then I thought to myself, what is my intention online? And then I saw your video and I thought, um, no, my intention is just to make informational content and reach out to people. And really, I don't really want to go viral or anything like that. I just want to make informational content and reach people. And, my intention is access to justice so people know what their rights are. My firm offers free legal advice on the initial stages, so at the early stage. And I do see a lot of the time that there is a gap between what people know at the start and what they understand in, for example, family law. People don't understand the system. And so I think there's a gap. And I'm trying to uh, fill the gaps.
So we spoke we,
So
we spoke briefly yesterday, and I want to pick up on what you just said. One of the reasons you're doing what you're doing, and I'll commend you on this, is you want to give everyone access to law. Yeah, and that's
that's right.
very commendable. And with
Yeah.
so just to help people out, and especially the youth, which is it a career that you'd first of all tell me what it takes to be so a young kid or young guy or girl looking into it or thinking about it. What, in your words, what's it take to be a lawyer, and do you recommend it?
Well, what I say to students all the time, especially advice I give almost on a weekly basis when I see um, students and even clients hitting walls and, in a negative state, I say to them, look, um, the negativity is not going to reap a solution, um, especially to students, for example, or someone facing a crisis. You do what you can, and if that's the best that 100% that you've done your best today, you go home and you know that you've put in 100%. Like there's no use beating yourself up about something that you know for sure you have no control over. However, in terms of family law, what I'd say is there is 100% um, family law is one of those areas where I'd say 60 to 70% is the culture, toxic culture and the negativity comes from the outside, um, and is a force from the outside, more than the parties themselves. Um, and it's
So what type of character does it take to be a good family lawyer? Or
to be able um, to be a good family lawyer, to be able w- to be able to stick to the Family Law Act and to the objectives of the Family Law Act, and not be a mere mouthpiece of your client.
well said.
That's one. Two is to stick to the solicitor conduct rules. Um, the solicitor conduct rules are very clear. The family law rules are very clear. They are separate to the solicitor conduct rules.
And Lara, if I can go back to negativity, you mentioned negativity. Where'd that come? Where does that come from?
The negativity,
Yeah.
you can see this in a lot of cases. You don't need to steer very. The thing is with children's cases, because the courts are closed often, um, it's confidential, so you can't. And obviously, solicitors cannot talk about these cases either. But for example, if you take a case where I'll just give you an example without revealing confidential information. If you take a case where, for example, um, you pressure a child into saying that they don't want to spend time with the father, okay? And you pressure that child to tell the counselor, for example, that they don't want to see their father, or vice versa, that they don't want to see their mother. This impacts the child immensely because if you look at um, section 60, section 60 CC, open bracket 2, because it changed in May of last year, um, there are core elements of what of the core elements of the best interests of a child. Children, for example, um, should always you should always take into consideration that children should have the best of both parents. Um, and when you have the manipulation of one parent, and I'm not being um, gender, it's got nothing to do with gender. It can come from any type of gender, okay? Um, gender, the manipulation has no gender role to it, okay? Often it comes from external elements that control this manipulation towards the children. And no size fits all. There are a lot of elements that push into the manipulation towards children.
I've got a question here. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you, Lara. I've got a question here in regards to, and it's not gender specific either. How serious do the courts take false allegations then? Whether it's coming from a mother or a father. Like for instance, I'm allowed to speak about it. I'll just use my case, and I know there's numerous cases like this. I got accused of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, okay, and I was unable to see my kids for 11 months. By the time I got my family report from a clinical psychologist, it actually found that my wife was basically lying, and things that were supposedly I had done to my kids were false allegations and were only were reported as the kids had no recollection of it. It's just what mum told me. You with me? So all three kids saying, well, I can't remember anything of this particular incident that was not horrific in the sense, but it was brought up. at the interview with the clinical psych. So for me, where is the consequences? Is there such a thing as perjury about lying? Do we have consequences because I know you're specifically talking about children here and the best interests of the child, right? Is there consequences on either side? Because I can't see the law being implicated there at all.
Yeah, if you look at how um, it's not that. If you look at the Family Law Act, it's 1970. It's not that with the times,
Okay.
in my view, personally.
Okay. So it needs a bit of
In
a.
my view, also, if someone is, if if the claims are not substantiated, I have said this in previous times to colleagues and to students and to clients. In my view, if something is unsubstantiated, there should be consequences, just like in criminal law. If something is unsubstantiated, I think that, for example, in family law, the law is still behind um, in terms of accusations, but I don't think there's anything in terms of the children with accusations when they're not unsubstantiated. Often there are no significant consequences.
And
as
lying
it
in
stands.
affidavits, there's no repercussions for lying in affidavit.
There is uh, repercussions ordinarily, but it depends on, because the courts have discretion. Okay, judges have discretion,
And police.
courts have discretion. So it depends on the one the lawyers seeking orders that whatever claims were made for orders that the accusations or whatever it is, that orders are made accordingly, okay, seeking that the court invokes its discretion. So if orders aren't sought to begin with, then the court does not invoke its discretion, okay? So if you don't seek something from the court to begin with, then that is not going to follow through. So one, it starts with the lawyers acting, and then two, it starts with the court's discretion. Then
Are
do
we?
you understand? Are you following what I
Yeah, yeah,
mean?
yeah. Of
So
course,
the
I do
court
because
has
I've been involved with it.
discretion.
Yeah.
But they won't
However, if you
implicate it
don't seek
unless.
orders with the court, so it's twofold. One, it can come from the lawyer, and two, the court has discretion.
Yeah, yeah.
So it can come either way. However, it has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
So there's a term called trigger happy, which means someone's prepared to pull the trigger. Are we living in a generation now where people are lawyer happy, as in to run to the lawyers straight away? Is that the generation we're living in?
No, I think it's quite the opposite. I think people are running far away from lawyers. I
You think
think
so,
I
Liz?
think it's
You
quite
think
the
so? Do you
opposite. I
th-
think
I
people
hope so.
don't
Do you
want
think
to
so, Liz?
entertain lawyers.
Look,
So
I think that
a typical mum
I
or dad
think
comes.
there's a stigma against lawyers at the moment because people, and this is why I say it with all heart. That's why I offer free legal advice to so people believe what I'm telling them.
You actually got my
Uh,
respect yesterday.
I
We spoke about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so because I don't want to send for you to believe me that when I tell you something, I'm telling you it with all my chest. That um, because when I was uploading the initial videos, I just felt like people don't want to know. Like when I was telling them what happened to their social media accounts, there was so much mockery. Like they don't want to know what happens to their But the one comment said, "Once I die, I don't care." Like, okay,
You got to
I'm just
understand where
telling
that's
you
coming
what
from.
happened.
You got to understand where that's coming
I
from. Yeah.
understand,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's
I get it. That's what's
information
out
is
there.
free these
Yeah,
days.
that's what's out there. Um, so and typically, you blew me away when you answered this yesterday, but I'll ask you again. What's a typical case that one parent can expect to pay? What sort of dollars are we talking?
In a family law,
Yeah.
about 200,000 to 300,000
wow.
dollars, not cents.
Think about that. Now, to those parents entertain going down that path, that's you focus on the money you're taking away from your partner, but if you truly love your kids, you need to remind yourself that you're actually taking it away from your kids.
Yeah, so I've had a few clients approach me in the last year. Well, they're not clients, they're people who made inquiries that I could have taken on as clients. However, I take the odd approach that a lot of people tell me I'm crazy. I take the odd approach where I tell them to go back to their separated, I don't know what you want to call them, but I call them their separatees.
Mm.
And I tell them to try and be, um, try and be amicable, okay? Just try and, I mean, you had kids together, just try and be as amicable as you can and try and talk about a workable future, because that money that you're going to spend on a lawyer like me and a lawyer, any other lawyer, whoever it is, whether it's me or any other lawyer litigating against each other, is taking money out of your kids' mouths and putting it in any lawyer's pocket.
Lara, I
And I-
agree. I agree. And one of the reasons I'm doing this, and because I'm sure you'll add to this, is I want to now talk about what lawyers don't talk about. What does life then start looking like for those parents and those children based on your experience? Can you give us an insight as to
Well,
what life is going to look like?
I give them an outlook of the next 3 years, about three to 4 years of pre-action procedures, okay? Because the law, family law is a federal jurisdiction. So whether you're in Melbourne or New South Wales, except Western Australia, which has its own procedure.
I didn't know that.
No hate to Western Australia, but Perth is its own procedure. Um, it's a federal jurisdiction. So whether you're in Victoria, um, anywhere else except Western Australia, it's going to look similar, okay? Other than an amicable divorce, joint divorce, everything else, if it's fought, if it's not by agreement, the procedure is going to look similar. Um, you have to go to mediation, you have to get a certificate, you have to go down the initiating application. It's a process.
Lara,
Okay.
is it more complicated when there's kids involved compared to when there isn't kids involved? Say, for instance, we've got a married couple, no children, compared to a married couple, 3 children.
Yes, it is
Okay.
more complicated.
Yeah, because
It is
what?
more complicated because you can resolve it faster. Yes and no, but I would lean towards more so yes, because children are often used as a weapon.
Yeah.
Um, as sad as it seems, but children are used more as a. I know it sounds like toxic culture, but it is more so toxic culture. But they, o- if you want to use it um, as a percentage, I would say more so than not. Um, Matters where there are no children often settle outside of court if I wanted to weigh them up,
Okay.
where there are no children as opposed to where there are children, because there is probably a culture that if you have, the more kids you have, the more, I don't know,
Okay. So
The more
let's.
things
moving
that you
parts,
do
the
in the
more moving
community, the more
parts,
money you can get.
moving parts.
Okay, so my point on this is now you've mentioned the cost of running this thing through the family courts. Obviously,
Yeah.
we still need lawyers if it's amicable. What is the difference, and what are we getting away with cost-wise then? Okay, we can talk about a bare minimum of 150 up in excess of $300,000. If we were just to hire lawyers and we're amicable with our partner and our children, what sort of costs are we looking at to settle things? If we're
Well, if it's just for consent orders, probably 5 to 10,000. Can we
wow,
cut this part out with
yeah,
my
yeah,
kids?
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
actually an important part because it shows you're a human and you have family values. We spoke about that
Yeah.
yesterday.
But I don't want my kids. I don't want my kids on
Oh, no, that's fine. We can do it.
podcast.
So Lara, I just
Shada, shada. Yeah, I've tried to protect my kids from the internet for
No,
a long time.
good on you. So I'll just now that they're out of screen, I just want to.
All right, I'm nearly done. Yeah. Okay, I'm coming. Can you go inside to Tesla? All right, go inside. Go inside. Yeah, okay.
So Lara, we spoke about how there's a lot of moving parts with court, but and my challenge is to give people an insight of how life is going to look like, which you touched on previously. And I know we spoke about this yesterday, and I did mention to
I'll
you.
just go back to the other one. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I'll just mention if you, because you can do it in a couple of different ways. If you were to get consent orders, okay, if you were to get consent orders, you have to have independent lawyers because if you need consent orders that are sealed, each party has to get independent lawyers, okay, if they're amicable. So each party is going to have a cost, but that cost is not going to be anywhere near a litigated claim, okay?
So yes,
I just wanted to because my kids, when my kids are around, I can't
no,
think.
that's right.
Okay?
It's worked out
So I
perfect because you've
wanted
just.
to clarify that point.
It's worked out
If-
perfect because I've got a friend of mine that's going through that similar situation. You've
Yeah.
just clarified that there needs to be, run that by me again, there needs to be independent lawyers to make an
Yeah.
amicable.
because there is going to be a certification that each party has had an independent lawyer. And there's also a document that you can have called a binding financial agreement. So parties can have a binding financial agreement before they enter into a relationship, while they're in a relationship, or after a breakup, as opposed to consent orders. However, binding financial agreements, as opposed to consent orders, can be thrown out by the court. Okay, so they're otherwise called the prenup in America. In Australia, they call it a BFA, a binding financial
So
agreement.
are they watertight these days?
They're not watertight. They can be thrown out by the court. They
And
can
is
be
this true, Lara?
dismissed.
Is this
They
true?
can
If I start dating a woman and she comes over and we've been together a few months and she now brings a toothbrush and maybe a couple of bits of clothing and she leaves it there for occasional nights. She might stay there 2-3 nights a week, and we've been together 3 to 6 months. Does she have a case?
at the 2 year mark.
No, it's like less than 2 years. Say there's 6 months. You got a girlfriend. She comes over a few nights a week. She has a change of clothes left there. Does she have a case?
Informational only, not at 6 months.
Not at 6 months. So okay, at 2 years, if she still
Not
has
at six.
okay, so at 2 years, if she still stays over 1 or 2 nights a week only, does that person then have a case?
At 2 years, I would. She is nearing dangerous waters.
So what's your advice to young men? Don't let her bring the toothbrush.
She would, if there would be a separation, a breakdown at that point, you would need to protect yourself. I would start with a BFA.
So you'd agree?
It could still get thrown out by people.
You'd agree a toothbrush can be a very good investment.
I'd agree not
A
to let her
toothbrush
live
at
with
Coles is only worth $5, but if you place that toothbrush in the right place for the right amount of time, it could be the best investment.
If you don't intend, put it this way, if you don't intend on making her your partner, I wouldn't let her anywhere near your abode.
Thank you. I told you. People
Okay.
don't know how dangerous a toothbrush can
Don't
be.
share bank accounts. I wouldn't share the bank accounts. I wouldn't share Don't live a shared life. Look that up in the Family Law Act.
Okay. And this is on a serious
Don't
note.
live a shared life by any means.
This is on a serious note as well. So there's no bank accounts, nothing. But if a person came and stayed with you 2 nights a week, didn't even bring a toothbrush, is that still a relationship?
that wouldn't form a shared life under the Family Law Act.
Okay. Yeah. Louis?
You'd have to look very carefully as to what a shared life to the exclusion of all others would be captured as under the Family
So
Law
basically,
Act.
prenups, we'll call them, are not watertight, and really got to focus on uh, reducing the shared life component
Not
of it.
sharing, not
Yeah,
having a shared life
yeah. So
under the Family
this
Law Act.
this is
Yes.
what I've been trying to tell people through
So
my.
don't let her live with you. So if you don't intend on having a shared life with someone, I wouldn't be letting her spend weekends with you, um, sharing your bank account, transferring money to her.
Far out.
These shared things you don't do with you do
Shared
with a
document
partner.
things. Yeah, far out. Yeah. I like
Shared
this.
document, shared bank account. That sounds like a shared life to me.
I think you're going to get a lot of phone calls after this, Lara. Yeah,
You just have to be like, look, that's not my honesty. That's not my intention. My intention is just to
I know.
like, if I had to say that 1,000 times, there's an intention to get information out there, but there's a lot of lawyers on social media, but I haven't seen many that actually explain the process.
Mm.
That's that's like, but I'm not criticizing anyone by any means, okay? But
Is that because of legal reasons, Lara, that they don't
that's
explain
my
the process?
so no, I don't believe so
Yeah,
because
okay.
it's not
So it's
you're
half
not
half telling a story.
about you're not permitted um,
To explain
to
the
give
process. Yeah.
information.
Mm.
That's actually your job.
Yeah.
It's your job to give information. Okay, because that's what we studied the 5 years is to be like an information powerhouse.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of your job. But what I think, in my view, is that to me is there's no benefit in me leaving it up here. Like
I get it. You want to give back, and it's a good.
it's
Yeah,
benefiting. It's benefiting no one but myself.
and that's
Like
actually
I'm just
one
leaving
one
it
of the
all
reasons why we're
in
doing
here
what we're doing.
for no benefit.
Yeah, because when I asked you before about what life will look like for two parents at war with each other, what life is going to look like that lawyers don't tell you about. And I'll tell you, for me personally, I told you this yesterday. It took me almost 3 years to get our house back. We were kicked out. We were renting, you know, and it took me like ridiculous amounts of court cases to get our house back. And I'll tell you, Lara, if it's one thing people get from this, apart from your great advice, is the worst feeling I ever had when every time I go to court, I get my hopes up that we're going to get an order to get our house back, and all I copped was delay. Delay. I would literally sit in my car, and I knew my eldest daughter, she was going to call. I knew she was about to call any minute. That to me was the worst feeling in the world when I constantly had to carry the weight of letting them down. It's something that I'll never forget, and something that I'll never stop telling people what that looks like. That literally destroys families, creates a legacy, not legacy, sorry, a trail of trauma throughout generations, just stuff like that. And that's what lawyers don't talk to you about because they're too busy either A, fixated on taking people's money, or B, with some other form of, self-serving vested interest, yeah? So the complex legal cases, the impact on families and children, lawyers, are really not going to tell you about for many reasons, but that's why we're doing this show, to speak to lawyers like you and kind of paint a picture for people what life is going to look like.
Can I just mention to you something I thought about last night? I just wanted to mention people also don't think about after marriage and divorce about their estate and their wills. Marriage and divorce and marriage, it invalidates your will. So I would recommend that everybody updates their will if they have married recently or they divorced recently. And uh, if you've married recently or divorced recently, it invalidates your will so far as your former partner is concerned. So if you had a will that you had drafted a long time ago, I would just recommend that you update your will, get a new will done.
Otherwise,
That's
elbows coming in to be a
just
business partner.
purely information.
I will, and also on a lighter note, I saw a case yesterday. How's this? I thought I had a good run. So a guy finalised his divorce at 9 a.m. He got the certificate at 9 a.m. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he goes and buys a lottery ticket, and he won 40 million US. And the ex-wife has come back to court trying to pin him for the lottery ticket, even though he's got a timestamp. He bought it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Her argument was because she was so supportive, even though legally she's not entitled to it. The judge explained it very well, but because she was riddled with toxicity, she was so focused on what she brought to the relationship, which he said was a complete bunch of lies. So she's like, I deserve this. There's no deserving in law. Law is a legal process.
It happens.
Yeah, it has to be
It
signed
happens
off.
if you die without a will. If you pass away without a will, your separatee, your
Is
if
involved.
you're not
Is
formally
involved. Yeah.
divorced,
Is involved.
inherits your entire estate.
Yeah, I know. I know.
So I battle about getting a will. If you pass away without a will, if you die interstate and you're separated but not formally divorced, whoever you loathe, sorry, if you're not currently in that relationship with the person,
He's
inherits
entitled. Yeah, of
your
course.
estate.
I get it, and that's yeah.
What about if your ex-wife is deceased?
Your children.
The children, yep.
It's the law of intestacy.
Yep.
It's the law. It's a hierarchy.
Yep.
But if the person is alive,
Yep.
and you're separated from them,
Yep.
but however, if you're divorced, but not formally divorced, because a lot of religions make it difficult to formally divorce, where you could be separated in limbo for a lot of years, which I'm aware. Some could be waiting for the divorce for a while. So I just wanted to mention that if you get married, it invalidates your will, and if you divorce, it invalidates your will. And in any event, you should check your documents.
Lara, like you're born in Lebanon like me, right? Obviously, so that's in your blood. So I get frustrated with, especially the Lebanese community, right? Or even all the wogs, right? It's like, how did we get here? Like back in the day, we used to send, the priest around or the sheik around to work something out, right? How did we get here? I mean, especially in the Lebanese community, are they lawyer happy? Because it seems like they're a bit more lawyer happy than anyone else these days.
No, they're not, because if you tell them get a will done, they tell you you're trying to kill them. But they own a lot of assets.
Yeah, but what about what happened to the days
But
where
they seem to own a lot of assets, but they don't believe in having a will. It's odd.
I suppose
I don't know.
to go back to my
Like
question?
I'm not. I just. Yeah. Well, what is it?
To go back to my question, like what happened to the days of when the sheik used to come around and have a chat to both parties? How did we suddenly get here?
I think I don't know. I think it's a mix between technology and culture. I think the new generation is not so in line with culture. The new generation is not big on language. So I don't if you look at the sheiks these days, a lot of them are not strong with language as much as
good point.
back
And to be honest,
20 years ago.
if you want my, and
I don't think so.
I'm sure Louis will agree to this. Anyone that goes to a lawyer as their first point of call with someone that's a reasonable person, honestly, excuse the French, is a fucking idiot. Honestly, if you have a reasonable partner, right, and you go straight to the lawyer, honestly, like there's no. Two things are infinite, yeah? The universe and fools, but often I wonder about the universe. Does that make sense? Which means basically fools are never out of stock. So, and that's like, you don't get your time back on this planet, yeah? So, to go and respectfully.
If you are both reasonable, yeah, you should be able to discuss with each other.
Yeah, that's what I'm big on.
That's why when they come to me, I tell them go back to each other and discuss with each other, and then come to me as a last resort. But unfortunately, often it's though lawyers are meant to be ethical and say that to clients, because that's one of the ethical conduct rules. Lawyers also have to give brochure. In family law, we're bound by one of the requirements of giving the marriages, families, and separation brochure. However, I don't know how often that's done. Whilst, for example, when they come to me, I say go back and come to me as a last resort. It is a very opportunistic area. So
Well
whilst
said. Yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah,
find
well
it
said.
is a very
So
opportunistic
here's a
area
question. Here's a
because
question. Here's a question for.
actors taking advantage of.
I agree. So here's a question for you. What was the Lara like when she first started law, and how's family law changed you now?
I think the first time I took on a family law matter, I think I thought it was. I just thought back to that matter. I was very innocent. I was very innocent in my dealings in that matter. But now I'm very different in the way I deal with that matter, with clients in particular. Um,
Does
I
any,
was very innocent with other lawyers.
uh, does anything shock you anymore?
No,
Yeah, it's
no.
like you just don't know. You just don't know these days, do you? With family law, there's so many moving parts to it. Yeah,
Is,
Nothing shocks you, but nothing shocks you, but you still try to look to
the
the
good.
good
Yeah, the good. Yeah.
in everyone and everything. Um, but in saying that, I still hope to see a day where clients and families resolve their matters outside
The right
court
way. Yeah,
at
good.
the
Yeah.
least, at the lowest cost possible.
Good on you. And I want to go back to your social
I
media.
hope.
I want to go back to the social media side of it. Where's that at? What's your plan with that?
Sure. Honestly, I don't intend to grow that beyond what it is. What I post will just remain as it is, just informational videos when I can. I have two jobs and kids, so
How many lawyers will do that?
when I have time, I'll post
So,
informational videos.
so listen to that. She's got two things she's involved with, and kids, and she's doing content to help others, right? To educate. I mean, who does that?
just a quick question from a professional side, Lara, because my partner also is well, she's a clinical and sports psychologist. Um, we often talk about how important it is, for instance, for her to be better at her profession as a mother, as someone that's been married, and as someone that's obviously gone through separation, compared to someone young that's in the same profession that's never been married, never had the kids. So, Lara as a mum compared to Lara single or with just a partner, how much of that makes a difference in your field, do you think?
Yeah, of course. Like everything I do, I try to do ethically, with a mindset of trying to like do it with like trying not to like trying to see the best in people. I think I do that more now as a mum.
Yeah.
Um,
Because
I try to keep.
obviously being a mum and seeing these kids involved in family court matters, surely that's got to hit home. You being a mum compared to say a female lawyer that's not a mum. This is why my partner stays away from reports for things like that, and so she'd rather deal with the athletes, the sports people, and things like that. She tries to stay away from that.
No, I think I'm the opposite. I
Yep.
deal with it because it gives me a thicker skin.
Yep.
I think I deal with things that involve children because I never want any other child to suffer in that way.
Yeah.
I love that,
Because
Lara.
I think
I really do.
Because I can go home and say I protected a child
Yeah.
because
It's fantastic.
Lara, and that's one of the
my
reasons
kids
why
at home are safe.
him and I sitting here. Partly, there's a big part of that sitting in both of us. Like, I don't know if you know Louis' story. He's got a similar story to me. I'll tell you a bit more about that when we speak. But and if I asked Lara what has been her most rewarding moment in her legal career so far, what would it be?
Um, I think just with every client that has said thank you to me.
Yeah, how powerful is that?
Uh, I
Yeah.
think just with every client that has told me that I've made a difference to them.
Very few lawyers will say that. They'll probably say, I
I
don't know,
think
having
know why?
having lunch at Saint Tropez or something.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I think they know who I am, and I don't think I could have asked for better.
Yeah, it's good on you. Good on you.
That's beyond what I could have asked for.
Good on you. What message do you want people to take away about protecting their families legally and emotionally?
I think just try and work between yourselves. I think there's nothing um, in a legal context that can't be resolved uh, through dispute resolution.
And
You
so
don't
some people will
need.
come back and say to you, some people will come back to that and say, Lara, but you don't get it. I'm dealing with the most evil person on the planet. What's your advice to them then?
I understand, but often 9 times out of 10, the court system is and that's a tough situation. You'd really have to have a a situation so complicated that you could tell me that it's worth expending 300, 400, 500,000 dollars to deal with it be, before the Federal Circuit and Family Court. You
Some,
can do that. You can do that in a private setting.
Lou, what's your take on someone
You
that
really
spends?
have
Not
to.
even
You
very
really
much.
have to weigh up. You really have to put it on a a balancing tray for yourself. You have to balance that for yourself and weigh up your options and see whether your problems are so beyond resolve that it's worth it for you
Well, I'll tell you
to
now,
to wait
as
5 years.
someone who's been in the system 5+ years. In fact, if I don't get out of it, September will be 6 years. Uh, I really feel sorry for the good parent, mum or dad, that's trying to do their best, holding up the fort, having the whole weight of the world on their shoulders, while you have some um, evil person that you're dealing with, literally trying to take everyone's soul. I really feel sorry for that kind of parent, and that's what tips guys and women over the edge. And that's why I got you on here, because I know you empathise with exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah, of course. Often it's just beyond. It's beyond. Sometimes it's beyond the human mind as to how you would justify the cost, the time, just everything that goes
Well,
into it.
there'd have to be some sort of abnormality about you to study it intimately, and I have studied it intimately over the last 5.5 to 6 years. But we won't talk about that now. One day I will be able to talk about it. But the that I've asked myself that question very, very deeply often, and I've got an opinion on that. But I just want to focus on what we can change, and we can't change the legal system. You'll agree. You can change lawyers, you can that, but ultimately the most powerful thing anyone can take away from this, in my opinion, is understanding the power of their choices, attract the right person, create the right environment, get the right results. Louis, do you want to add to that?
No, look, it's been fantastic having Lara's input. You know, I think it's fantastic that someone morally wants to come out and speak, because look, I mean, you think about it. I mean, this is the way I see it. If I'm a lawyer, I'm thinking to myself, this is my business. This is my income. I had no idea that ethically, like what Lara was saying, you can point out to your clients, look, go ahead and try and do this and be amicable about it. Don't come to us so we can fill our pockets, which is really refreshing to see. I mean, I've dealt with legal stuff, and in the end, I dealt with it better myself because I learnt the law by myself. And it was like, I didn't know whether my lawyers were actually doing more harm than good, to be honest with you, with my IVOs. It was better coming out of my mouth. It just seemed to be that I was getting stringed along to fill their pockets to the point where I said, you know what, I'll just deal with this myself. It's quite basic. Yes, there's charges. They have to prove that they're true or not. There's accusations there, but I haven't done them. It's up to them to prove it by the time I come to court. And yet I've got my lawyers saying to me, oh, they're pretty serious charges. And I'm like, you're working for me. If they're true, they're pretty serious. But, you know, I mean, don't come and visit me in a jail cell telling me that they're pretty serious charges, you know, and in the end they all get dropped and, you know, you go and spend time incarcerated for 8 weeks for getting a friend to drop your son's phone charger off in a letterbox. I mean, seriously, it's almost comical. But and then to have a judge say, well, you shouldn't have been incarcerated for 1 day. Well, I'm like, hang on, isn't that working backwards? But yeah, look, it's been a real eye opener and really pleasant having you on, Lara.
100%. It's ironic. I'm sitting here smirking because as I talk to you, I mean, my daughter, as you know, she's in her second year of law, and generally you can't turn pig shit into cream apple pie, but my daughter did decide to do that. And it's funny, she now comes home from uni or whatever and runs cases by me or situations, and we give and take, and she values my opinion, which is such a buzz. Because as we're doing that, we look at each other at the end, and it's like, look, I'm getting goosebumps because when we look at each other at the end, we always never forget where we were, and now we smile with knowing exactly where we are, and we just want to be an example to others. I'm so proud of her, Lara, and of you as well. And yeah, you don't want to
Well,
waste
I
your
wish
time.
her well with it.
Yeah, it's like such a buzz, man. Like, you know, I told you, I'll remind people, it all started when I got bail. She came to see me at my parents' house, and I had a big
Yeah.
fat bag. I took a photo of the bag when my mate picked me up late at night when I got released. It was about that fat.
Yeah.
And she didn't even sit down. When they came to see me, they all came in, and Max had, I think Jamie or Max had the card, and they drew me behind the bars. That's how they dealt with it. They drew that, you know, that's how I respected what they did because that's how they dealt with it. And then they came in. She didn't even sit down. The other two gave me hugs and kisses. She's like, Dad, where's your charge sheets? And I remember seeing her face. She said, you're not seeing them. So she went inside. She comes back out like waving him, like, Dad, these are all bullshit. I said, sorry, don't worry about him. Anyway, she goes, Dad, these are all bullshit. I'm going to be a lawyer. And I thought it was just, you know, a knee-jerk reaction. So the message is it's not where you are, it's what you do with it. It's, you know, and here's two examples of two people trying to do the right thing with it. And for that, I commend you. Lara, thank you very much for coming in. We'll do it again. We'll never forget you because you're the first one that's reached out. And you've left us with a lot of things, especially for young men to take away. But the toothbrush, and I told you, Lara, toothbrush at Coles is worth $5. But if you put the toothbrush in the right environment, you nurture it a little bit, it could be worth millions. So, yeah, thank you very much.
There's a lot of areas that can be talked about. Like there's still, as I said, wills and estates, like there's family provision, there's personal injury. There's a lot of areas that can be talked about, not just but family law is very extensive. There's a lot of areas and it's very heavy as well. But nice to meet you both, and hopefully we can do it
We'll do it again.
sometime.
We'll do it again. Thank
All
you,
right,
Lara.
thank you.
You
Thanks,
really
Lara.
made my day of this one.